History often tells us that empires fall slowly, weakened over decades by corruption, decay, and decline. But sometimes history moves with terrifying speed. Sometimes empires that ruled for centuries collapsed in a single day, on a single battlefield, in a moment no one believed was possible. Armies that were thought invincible shattered. Kings who felt untouchable vanished, and entire worlds changed direction before anyone had time to understand what had happened. These are the moments when history did not fade away quietly, but snapped suddenly and violently in one battle that no one saw coming. Empires build myths around themselves. They convince their people and their enemies that they are eternal, protected by gods, destiny, or sheer power. These myths are powerful. They discourage rebellion. They intimidate rivals. They create the illusion that defeat is impossible. But myths are fragile. When reality finally breaks them, it often does so in a single devastating blow. The battle that follows is not just a military clash, it is the collapse of belief itself. One of the most shocking examples comes from ancient Lydia, one of the wealthiest kingdoms of the ancient world. King Croesus was legendary for his riches and his confidence. He believed his empire was secure, protected by strong armies and powerful alliances. When conflict with Persia became inevitable, Croesus consulted oracles who spoke in riddles, which he interpreted as promises of victory. But at the Battle of Thymbra, everything went wrong. Persian tactics shattered the Lydian forces. Croesus was captured, and Lydia ceased to exist as an independent empire almost overnight. A kingdom that had defined wealth and power collapsed in a single encounter. The fall of the Achaemenid Persian Empire itself followed a similar pattern despite its immense size. For generations, Persia dominated the ancient world, ruling from India to the Mediterranean. Its armies were vast, its resources unmatched. Yet at the Battle of Gaugamela, Alexander the Great achieved what seemed impossible. Against overwhelming odds, his smaller, disciplined force outmaneuvered the Persian army. When King Darius fled the battlefield, the psychological damage was irreversible. The empire did not collapse immediately everywhere, but its authority died that day. Once the king fled, loyalty evaporated, cities surrendered, satraps defected, and empire fell because one battle shattered its image of invincibility. In the ancient Near East, the Neo-Assyrian Empire had ruled through fear for centuries. Its armies were ruthless, its punishments legendary. No one expected it to fall quickly. Yet at the Battle of Nineveh, a coalition of enemies struck at the heart of Assyrian power. The capital was sacked, the king killed, and the empire collapsed almost instantly. There was no long decline. Once the center fell, the system collapsed. The empire had been held together by terror, and when that terror failed, nothing remained to sustain it. Rome is often remembered as an empire that declined slowly, but parts of it fell in shockingly sudden ways. The Western Roman Empire suffered many defeats, but the Battle of Adrianople was a turning point no one anticipated. Roman forces, confident in their superiority, underestimated Gothic warriors. The result was catastrophic. The Roman army was annihilated, and the emperor was killed on the battlefield. For the first time in centuries, Rome was exposed as vulnerable. While the empire lingered afterward, the illusion of Roman invincibility died that day, and the collapse that followed became inevitable. In East Asia, the fall of the Jin dynasty during the Mongol invasions demonstrated how quickly centuries of power could vanish. The Jin believed their fortifications and numbers could withstand any threat, but Mongol mobility, strategy, and adaptability overwhelmed them. One decisive defeat opened the gates to widespread collapse. Cities surrendered en masse, officials defected. The dynasty crumbled far faster than anyone expected, proving that even well-defended empires could fall in a single decisive moment. In medieval Europe, the Kingdom of Jerusalem stood as a symbol of Christian power in the Holy Land. For decades, it survived against overwhelming odds through diplomacy, fortifications, and fragile alliances. But at the Battle of Hattin, everything unraveled. The army was lured into harsh terrain, cut off from water, and destroyed by Saladin's forces. The defeat was total. The kingdom lost its army, its leadership, and its ability to defend itself in one blow. Jerusalem fell soon after. An entire Crusader state collapsed because of one disastrous decision. The Byzantine Empire, though resilient, also suffered moments where a single battle nearly erased it. The Battle of Manzikert is one such example. Byzantine forces, plagued by internal betrayal and poor coordination, faced the Seljuk Turks. When parts of the army withdrew or defected mid-battle, chaos followed. The emperor was captured, and Anatolia, the empire's heartland, was lost in the aftermath. While Byzantium survived for centuries afterward, it was never the same. One battle permanently altered its fate. In the Americas, the Aztec Empire fell with stunning speed after a single catastrophic defeat. Though disease and internal divisions played roles, the Battle of Tenochtitlan marked the decisive moment. The empire's capital fell, the emperor was killed, and centralized authority collapsed. Within a short span of time, an empire that ruled millions ceased to exist. The speed of the collapse shocked both conquerors and the conquered. Even in more modern times, empires have fallen suddenly. The French colonial empire in Indochina unraveled after the Battle of Dien Bien Phu. French forces believed their position was secure. They were wrong. The defeat shattered France's ability to maintain its empire in the region. Negotiations followed, colonies were lost, and a global power was forced to retreat. One battle changed the course of an entire region. What these collapses share is not just military defeat, but psychological destruction. Empires survive on belief in leadership, belief in strength, belief in destiny. When a single battle proves those beliefs false, the structure collapses from within. Soldiers lose faith, citizens stop obeying, allies reconsider loyalty, enemies advance without resistance. These battles also reveal how fragile power truly is. An empire may appear solid, but its strength often rests on fragile systems of communication, trust, and authority. Once those systems fail, size and wealth mean nothing. The moment fear replaces confidence, collapse accelerates. Another key factor is leadership. In many of these battles, the flight, capture, or death of a ruler sealed the empire's fate. Kings and emperors were not just commanders, they were symbols. When the symbol fell, the empire lost coherence. Armies without belief are just crowds with weapons. History also shows that overconfidence is often the final enemy of empires. Rulers convinced of their superiority ignore warnings, underestimate opponents, and make reckless decisions. They assume that past victories guarantee future success. One unexpected defeat is all it takes to prove them wrong. These collapses remind us that history does not always move gradually. Sometimes it moves in sudden, irreversible leaps. An empire that seems eternal in the morning can be gone by nightfall. Borders shift, cultures vanish, new powers rise from the ruins of the old. One battle became the dividing line between eras. These stories challenge the idea that history is predictable. They show that even the strongest systems can fail suddenly under the right conditions. They warn against complacency, arrogance, and blind faith in power. Empires fall in many ways, but the most terrifying collapses are the sudden ones, the ones no one prepares for, the ones that happen too fast to stop, the ones where history turns without warning. In studying these battles, we are reminded that power is never permanent. It must be defended not just with armies, but with wisdom, restraint, and adaptability. When those fail, even the greatest empires can fall in a single, unexpected moment. History remembers these moments not because of their length, but because of their shock. Because in one battle, the world changed forever.